Hi, I'm Nicole Taylor. I'm doing this fiscal policy report for my class, Public Administration 615 for Professor M.Fudge. I'll just go right into it. This report that I wrote on 3 different cities for our fiscal policy paper, I chose the city of Moreno Valley, I chose the city of San Bernardino, and the city of Bell. The reason why I chose these 3 cities because they're all in different various financial positions, but they all have something in common. So we can start with the city of San Bernardino. That is the city that I was born and raised in. So I'm very proud of that city, but that city has had a lot of financial troubles in the past years. City of San Bernardino's financial problems started long ago, way before they filed for a Chapter 9 bankruptcy in 2012. The city of San Bernardino used to be an entertainment capital of California. A lot of celebrities used to come through here, and then just over the years, financial conditions just dwindled, property values went down, and they ended up filing for bankruptcy 3 years ago. They became the 3rd local municipality to file for bankruptcy in the nation that was as big as the city and the county that it was. Their demise really began with the loss of a huge employer. They lost the Norton Air Force Base back in 1988, and that really just kind of spiraled into people moving, unemployment, and along with that, they had coming into some questionable leadership. They had some city council members that were being charged with embezzlement and misappropriation of funds. So with the lack of leadership, the economy, and the loss of huge employers, San Bernardino, they ended up filing for bankruptcy, like I said, Chapter 9. They had less than $150,000 in their account at that time, cash. So they've had to do some revamping. And now they have their comprehensive financial report is only as of 2013. I'm not sure why, but that's all that I could find on the website. Their revenue comes from business tax, property tax, providing fee for services, utilities to residents. They reported over $253 million in general revenue in 2013, and it actually was a decrease from the previous year of $274 million. Their capital expenditures, their capital assets and debts added up to $640 million. Once again, a decrease from the previous year of $680 million in 2012. Their capital assets comes from construction, buildings, just like any other city, and they have lost money due to their depreciation, and because they never completed any improvements to their buildings. So, or the city's infrastructure, their roads, they have a lot of issues because they don't have any money. Over the time, their debt has actually increased, though, as they've been paying back their creditors. Creditors were willing to lower interest rate and that type of thing to get them back fiscally sound. One of the things that San Bernardino needs to do is try to attract huge employers to their city. They've done, Amazon has made their home in San Bernardino, and if they can keep doing that, if they can keep rolling in huge employers, then maybe in future years you might see more businesses and Fortune 500 companies wanting to make San Bernardino their home, and they can get more business taxes. And what they also need to do is create transparency for their cities, for their citizens, and for federal officials, because that was one of the things that they got dinged on when they were investigated. They really didn't have any good financial internal control, so they weren't really aware when they found out that city officials were still stealing money. It was way too late. It was already in the papers and things like that. So they need to work on their transparency, their internal controls, and just trying to attract huge employers. The next city that we have is the city of Bell. Now, the city of Bell is a charter city. They were incorporated in 1927, and they are a small city just east of Los Angeles. The city of Bell became very, very famous in the media because they had a huge scandal of the city manager and assistant manager having huge salaries. Their salaries were capping $800,000 for a very, very small population of city, and the city manager was making more than the United States president. So they were investigated. They were found that the city manager, they were all stealing money, loaning employees. Their internal controls were all out of whack. So they were just going to jail, period. The city council manager, Mike Rizzo, he ended up pleading guilty to embezzlement and fraud and was sentenced to 12 years in prison, along with other high officials such as the assistant city manager and the police chief. Now, the current city manager, Ernesto Valencia, he has claimed that they're going to start the new Bell. And so he's done a lot to bring the city's finances back in order. If you go on their website, they have a ton of reports, mid-year reports, a lot of interim reports, making their finances very transparent. They even have a warrant register that comes out every month, a check log, so you can see every check, every expenditure that the city has spent their money on. And even though the city council members were stealing a lot of money, they didn't have as big of a debt as San Bernardino. So the city reported a net position of $7 million. Well, for that size of a city, it's really not too bad. The year before, they had a net position of $38 million, but this year it's a little lower because they decided to revamp their retirement for their employees. So a lot of their money that they had is going to the employees now. Their revenue is required from property taxes, sales tax, business tax, and grants. The city has received a lot of grants to help it get back on its feet. Their expenditures for this year was $28 million, which is reasonable for that size of city. And their expenditures did increase by $3 million from the previous year. The city did carry over funds from the previous year, and another thing that they did was contract out public safety. So they had a little bit more from that as well. Their capital, they have capital assets of $2 million, and this includes land, buildings, roadways, vehicle construction in progress. That number pretty much remained unchanged from the 2014 report. They did a lot of modernization, ADA modernizations to their building, and what that means is they brought their buildings up to code for the disabled and the handicapped. That's called a modernization of building, and I learned that because I used to work for the school district in the facilities planning and construction department. So I kind of recognize that when I see it. Their capital leases total $90 million compared to $71 million of last year. Okay, so Bell is doing the best that they can at getting the city back to being financially sound. The mayor, he's tried to increase sales tax. He's tried to increase the business tax, and it looks like it's working for now. And the one thing that I like about Bell is they're really transparent. For what they've been known for, they're trying to bring it back around. The other thing the city has is $70 million in general obligation bonds, and they use this to finance city buildings and the parks and other construction projects. So, but these bonds won't be paid off until 2037. So I would, suggest to them that they maybe try to renegotiate the interest rates. So the last city that we have is the city of Moreno Valley, which is the city that I live in now. So Moreno Valley is kind of different than San Bernardino and Bell. Moreno Valley is financially doing an awesome job. They don't have any problems financially. They actually have like a surplus in their net balance. One thing I did like about Moreno Valley, when I was reading their financial reports are very, very transparent and user-friendly for a citizen. You can go in there and look and just see what the general revenue is, what the expenditures are, what the capital assets are, and they really explain why the number is the number and what they have spent their money on. Another thing that Moreno Valley has done very well is they've been able to attract huge employers to the city. They've attracted Aldi. Aldi is a new grocer in the area that has built their corporate offices and home. Amazon is another one that they picked up. What they're working on right now is building a world logistics distribution center for the whole entire unincorporated land that they have, just to attract some more corporate offices. So they really are bringing in a lot of revenue off of their business tax. They have over $1 billion net right now. So Moreno Valley is not really hurting at all. Their liabilities did increase by $46 million from last year, but they came in with sales taxes of over $193 million. Now, the expenses that they do have are just general government administrative activities, public safety, public works, parks and recreation, and Moreno Valley charges utilities to residents, and that's how they bring in most of their revenue. Expenditures totaled $1 million. It was a little over an increase of $50,000 from last year. Like I said, they've done a really good job of attracting huge employers. And even though they attract huge employers, not all the residents have been happy about it. That was one thing that I learned when I was discovering, doing my research. A lot of residents don't want, the World Logistics Center to be built. They don't want these huge companies coming in because they claim it's because of traffic and air quality. They don't want, the big trucks coming in and creating all kind of air quality problems for the residents. But other residents do think that they should be here because it creates jobs for the area. So out of all three of the cities, Moreno Valley is the best. They have the best financial position. Their capital assets and their debt, they have a debt capital assets of $1.3 billion, and their debt has totaled over $97 million. And they did see $1 million increase from a 2005 lease bond revenue refund that they received last year. So they're doing pretty good. And one thing I did see about Moreno Valley, they also included compensated absences into their debt. And I didn't see that with the other two cities. But they're doing really well. They have the best financial position out of any of the three cities. But out of those three cities, also Moreno Valley had a councilman who was taking bribes last year, $2 million in bribes, Marcelo Coe, and he was convicted of fraud and sentenced to 60 months in jail. So all three cities have had questionable leadership. But they've all seemed to figure out their way back, and they're all on their way back. Bell and San Bernardino are on their way back financially, and Moreno Valley is on its way back to gaining the trust of its residents from the scandal with the city councilman. But out of all three, Moreno Valley would be the one that would be the leader that I would say that the other two need to try to maybe get on board with attracting huge employers, keeping their debt down, and figuring out ways to bring in more revenue for the city. And like I said, Moreno Valley had the best comprehensive annual financial report, and it was so user-friendly. And actually, it taught me how to read the other two, because, if you're not, a lot of times these cities get into trouble because the council members are not fiscal people, and they don't know how to read reports. So they're making decisions on financial reports that they don't even really understand. And so that was one thing that I really appreciated about Moreno Valley's financial reports, was that it was very, like I said, user-friendly for the citizen. One thing that I would really like to see all three of these cities have is transparency, because I think that's just something that the citizens want, is transparency, so they can really understand what's going on financially, not just for the citizens, but for federal officials as well when they're doing, or auditors when they're auditing. Because internal controls are really important. That's how I work for the school district for 20 years, and I work in internal business. And that's how people get into trouble, is not having those internal controls and being able to explain why you spent what you spent, and if you were following the law, and then in the school district, we call it Ed Code. And so I think that's one thing that all three of them maybe need to work on. I really did enjoy researching this. I had never read a comprehensive annual financial report before, so now I feel like I'm a little bit, well versed in it. And that's the end of my report, and I hope you have a good summer.